Alf, today we have a guest with us, the guy that owns the company where I got the James Hetfield signed guitar, the Pele signed jersey. We're going to have a behind the scenes conversation with an auction house owner in the space. This is going to be fun. Jared over at Pristine Auction and Friends. If you want to try out Pristine, your first auction victory, $10 off. Use my promo code down below in the video description as well as in the pinned comments for $10 off your first auction victory over at Pristine. We will go ahead and roll it. Frank, hit the button. Do it now. Why do I pay you? All right, welcome back for another episode of the Sports Card Dad. I'm lucky today. It's a good day. I've got Jared over here, the owner of Pristine Auction. This is kind of part of the Inside the Mind of, and today we've got an actual auction house owner in the space. This is exciting. This is not every day that we get to sit down with an auction owner and kind of pick his brain a little bit. So Jared, thanks very much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited for the conversation. Absolutely.
Cool. So actually, we were just talking before we started this. What are you collecting? Because that's always kind of I feel like that's the genesis of everything. It's like, how did the company get started? How did this? How'd you, it all starts with you have to be kind of in the space yourself. And so what is it that you're kind of focused in, zeroed in on, excited about collecting, I guess now and then? If that's something that you've been collecting a long time, I'd like to hear about it.
Yeah, totally. No, it's definitely evolved, and that's certainly the story of how I got involved in this business from the beginning. But early days, collected cards, kind of like most kids, spent all my allowance on cards.
Yeah.
Thought I was sitting on a gold mine and quickly started looking those cards up. But I had a lot of fun collecting cards, and that turned into autographs. So I learned that I was always entrepreneurial. So as much as I was a collector, I also wanted it to make sense and make a few bucks here and there. So living in here in Phoenix, I started collecting autographs because we had spring training, a lot of really good access here for autographs. And so that became my passion really fast. So I'd run around getting all sorts of stuff signed, and I didn't sell a thing because I was too into it. Right. So, but eventually you end up with 10, 20, 30 of the same thing. Tony Gwynn, super accommodating out here. And so I'd have tons of stuff signed by Tony Gwynn. Didn't sell any of it for years.
Wow. But
finally, junior high, high school, started selling a few things here and there. Turned into some nice little extra money, which of course I dump right back into collectibles because that was my passion. But, I was able to diversify a little bit, get some guys that I couldn't get myself, and did a lot of autograph buying and collecting and things like that. So, it's evolved over the years. Now I've become a really big NASCAR fan. I know that's not the most popular thing out there, but
I've seen that.
What I like about that, I'm okay that it's not super popular because it makes it more affordable for me. So the cards are relatively cheap compared to others. So I've got quite a NASCAR collection that I've accumulated. Most of it I've opened myself with my boys. But I've gotten a pretty good collection. So my focus there is one of ones. So I've got a pretty nice one-on-one collection going. And then I've started to really start getting into game used jerseys. So you see the Devin Booker on my wall here. So I'm really getting into game used jerseys. I feel like there's a lot of upside there. They're pretty affordable. The prices that I'm getting superstars like my man Devin Booker here, I feel like the prices are
Now, did you get that? I'm curious because I've seen that the NBA, is it the NBA, the official NBA website that like right after the game, they'll post kind of these game use. I just learned of this like a year ago.
Yeah.
The actual NBA, they take them and then they sell them off. Is that how you got that one, or is it some other?
Yeah. So that auction platform has evolved over time, but where they currently auction them is where I grabbed that. And what's great about it is the authenticity is not in question, especially with game use stuff, authenticity is huge. But those come with a letter from the NBA stating exactly which game it came from. In fact, in that one on the bottom, they even always label them with the date. This particular one was from opening night of this season. So, as a Suns fan myself, they're breaking my heart these days. But as a Suns fan, that's a really nice collectible. So one of the
they had so much promise. Yeah, they had so much promise these last few years, and it's just kind of faded, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, they have to play first. We've got these superstars that decide to play when they feel like it. It feels like so.
Yeah,
not to dog on my Sons, but we got to get our act together a little bit out here.
Yeah, you were talking NASCAR. I did go through a little bit of a NASCAR phase, and I sold some of my stuff. But this is like, Panini's got some great stuff. The Titan, the Gold, like this is out of 10, and it's on card Richard Petty autos. And Richard Petty's got such a great auto. I know that he signs a lot of stuff, but he's along with Jimmy Johnson and Dale Earnhardt Sr. These are the goats of NASCAR. And some of that stuff is so inexpensive compared to everything else, as you mentioned.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah,
trying
it's
to
funny. I
collect that
had some stuff, if I can find it in my drawer. I try to do some unique things sometimes. And so you mentioned Richard Petty. I think I have one of these of him. We're doing this little series that we haven't released yet, where a bunch of guys we work with are doing these little sketch cards. So this
Oh,
one
okay.
actually was, apparently Richard Petty's actually sort of an artist, and that's part of why his signature is so nice. So he was one that did an actual art piece on one of these little sketch cards. So at
Oh,
some point
cool.
we'll do a little auction with these. And then of course most guys are terrible. That's Joey Logano doing a little sketch, but that's what makes it fun, right? This
Absolutely.
was
Yeah.
who is this one? Tyler Reddick. You know, there's just a bunch of these top NASCAR guys who we work with. We're having them do these little cards. So just something fun. Well, at some point when I accumulate enough, we'll throw up an auction and make it fun with those.
That's really cool. Yeah, I've noticed too that if you go back to Panini's products, like their national treasures going back for NASCAR, a lot of it is race used. Like, we've come into this world where everything is, player worn or whatever, or not associated. But the NASCAR stuff, for people that might just be wanting to look into it, a lot of it's like race used tires or race used suits or whatever from, that are used in these cards. So yeah, NASCAR is an interesting space.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen a card actually. Now that you mentioned it, I think every card I've seen is race used in the NASCAR space. So,
Yeah,
another reason to like it, right?
it's unique. Yeah, very
Yeah.
unique. So kicking off of that, when exactly did you say, all right, well, and I guess too, did you go through a thing where it was like, I want to start a hobby company and I'm not sure exactly what that is? Or was it always kind of like, let's go the auction route? Like, let's do the auction house route. How did that all happen?
So, it's kind of a funny little evolution, but I've always just been entrepreneurial in spirit, and so I went to college for business administration out here in Arizona, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just wanted to do something in the business world, and it's my passion. So of course, if I could do something in collectibles, that's absolutely what I want to do. To not to work my passion and not feel like I have to go into a job, basically. 2010, I was with my wife, and I had dabbled with some other silly ideas that were completely unrelated to collectibles, but nothing really grabbed my passion. And then I was dabbling as I always did. So I actually quit my job pretty early, probably too early to be honest, and just chased autographs and had fun with it. I'm like, hey, let's
Yeah.
just try it. I'll chase autographs around, see if I can make a few bucks, at least enough to figure out what I want to do with my life. And then that led me to work with some other auctions and things like that, and find things that I do and don't like about what they do on their platform. And that's when we started Pristine. So that was in 2010. I remember having in the car with my wife, hey, there's another idea. She's like, okay, let's do it. So yeah, so she was always very patient with the ideas. And of course she's, been with us since day one, helping build the business. So.
Now, something I noticed that you guys have done, which is really interesting, and something that is a differentiator when I look at Pristine, is you guys have a variety of different auction formats. There might be auction houses that run monthly auctions and that sort of a thing, and that's it, or maybe even quarterly, and that's all. You guys have daily, weekly, the elite monthly, and now I've seen that you're also doing a lot more live selling,
Yep.
streaming. Is that something that, again, I guess, can you explain the evolution of that, or the decision like, hey, let's move into these different verticals?
Yeah, so I think we've always been a real collector focused auction just because it's my passion and it's our business. So I wanted to make it kind of what I would want as far as an auction goes. And the one thing now, when we first started Pristine, we really did just kind of mirror what everybody else was doing, and we did a monthly auction. But pretty quickly, I got impatient and I said, man, it's like the drive-through mentality today is what I like to always say. Like, people want something now. I don't want to wait a month and wait for my bid. No one ever bids till the end, typically, anyways. So that's where the daily auction was born. So we started the daily auction with the idea that it would be one item per day, just to get people coming back and get their eyes on it. But it was
Yeah.
one item for like one day, and then very quickly that became popular, and that grew pretty rapidly. So it's just always been a focus on what the collector wants. Also, one thing we focus on is really having the variety for everybody. I want
Yeah.
everybody to be able to come and find something that they want and can afford and be within their budget. So yeah, the quick auctions have become our thing. We have even the 10-minute auctions now.
Yep.
And then sort of breaking news, but we're actually very soon coming out with what we're going to call the Minute Madness. So
Oh, okay. I'm gonna take a
that's
note.
going to be pretty intense. I've probably said too much already, so I'll wait to reveal more about that. But I think
Okay.
collectors are going to absolutely love that. And talk about drive-through mentality, that's going to be rapid fire and really fun. And then, yes, like you mentioned, live selling has become really big, really fast for us. I actually do that quite a bit myself just because I have so much fun with it. And then we have a couple other hosts, Brett and Dash, that have been leading that for us as well. And that's going to be a big focus of ours this year. I think it's, it's popular all over the place. It's really been growing. And I think we're in a great spot for collectors to be a spot to come and hang out and join the live auctions. So definitely a focus.
Now, of course, when I think of this, it's like, man, you said it, like you're living the dream, you're working in the collectible space, but I've got to believe that there's challenges that come your way on a daily basis. What does that look like? It's not all just, it can't all just be rosy all the time. What sort of challenges do you guys run up against?
Yeah, I mean, definitely daily challenges. I'm so thankful we have a great team around me. But one of the biggest challenges, I guess there'd be two that immediately come to mind. Number one is, the day of the internet. Most people that go out on the internet and are going to talk about you are going to do it in a negative way, no matter how much you try. And this is where the passion comes in, right?
I've learned that myself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know the deal. So, I've become so passionate about my business that, early on, I would lose sleep over this, right? You work so hard to build something and really try to please everybody, and you learn really fast, especially the bigger you get, the more momentum you have, that, there are people that are just going to spew negativity. So that's always been a challenge. It still is. But, I've learned that it's kind of part of the deal, right? So we do our best. I'm confident in how we run our business with integrity. And that's all you can do. You can't please everybody. So that's number one. Number two is fraud in every way. The one that we've dealt with just over and over again is just online fraud. Now, this is also sort of a pitch to say that as an auction house, that's something that we do for you that a lot of people don't realize. If you're a seller yourself on other platforms, you've probably dealt with some of it and probably gotten the short end of it, with credit card disputes and things like that, right? Like a credit card really sells themselves to their customers saying that, hey, we protect you. If something happens on your credit card, we take care of you. Well, you know what that means? That means an auction house, the other side of it, the business is actually covering that bill, unfortunately.
Right.
So, we can do everything right, ship to the right address, everything else. And, sometimes there's genuine fraud. And then there's also people that just know how to game that system. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of junk going on out there. So, we had a whole round of it recently that we had to fight. And so we had to, we're always innovating on our website to protect against it, but it's just a constant battle. It's exhausting, it's something you're kind of always chasing after and making sure that you're one step ahead of it. And if there's any loophole in your technology or anything, they're going to find ways to exploit it. So I will say on our technology side, we haven't ever had any issues with that. We're very careful with how we store data in an encrypted way and even offsite. All of our credit card data is taken by a third party. We don't touch any of that. So we're very careful with that. So it's not that type of fraud, but it is people getting merchandise, having it shipped to fraudulent addresses, things like that. That's just a constant battle. So.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay. How do you guys, and maybe, I don't know if you can maybe share this, but just, I guess, sourcing because you mentioned you guys have a ton of really cool variety. That's one thing I really enjoy about Pristine. I've got like the Steph Curry jersey I got from Pristine up here, but then I also have, a signed Taylor Swift guitar that I got for my daughter, for my 12-year-old. There's a huge variety of different things. How do you find all the different, and I guess, how did that evolve? Or have you guys always had that maybe for, 10 years or so, or how did it go from, sports to pop culture to, all of these things? And how do you continuously get all this fresh inventory?
Yeah. So in 2010, the auction started with my collection. I had accumulated for all those years. I kept a few pieces that I still have that I'm thankful I kept, but for the most part, the auction started with our own merchandise. And then very quickly we started picking up consigners. That was always the plan, is to scale it by picking up consigners. So I picked up some pretty good consigners early, and then our team just took really good care of them, and that's how it grew. So I'd say now it's at least 90% of what you see on our site is consigned to us, and that really is our model. We aren't wanting to create an environment where we're competing with our own sellers. We do want to spend our efforts selling for others. And so that's really our focus for sure. The stuff we own is more, what we do is we usually fill gaps that others, and that's where NASCAR comes in, right? None of our sellers were really living in that space. But there's a market for it, and it's a way to attract more people to our site. And it's something I'm personally passionate about. So that's why we got in the NASCAR space. So a lot of the NASCAR stuff you see on our site is stuff that we own. But again, that's very little of the inventory that you see.
The first time that you guys popped up on my radar was probably 2020, early 2021 is when I first saw Pristine. I'm just curious, just from your vantage point, because that's kind of where there was a huge shift, obviously, in sports cards, sports memorabilia, collectibles. It just felt like every middle-aged person, I always joke like I've gone through my midlife crisis, like every 40-year-old got back into collectibles, in some fashion. And were you shocked, I guess, by, the overall, just because I have to assume, just being that you started in 2010, that you had a shock to your business in 2020. And as we've kind of moved forward now, what was it from your vantage point, from your view? Because in 2010, obviously that had to have been a different market, I would assume. In 2020, 2021, a lot more money, it felt like, came in. Did you guys feel that? And what were your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so 2020 was a wild one. So, I distinctly remember sitting with our executive team, and most people in that room said, we need to shut down. Like, we can't operate. And what had happened here in Arizona is there was the governor had made a statement that essentially that he put out that was perceived publicly that if you were a non-essential business, you need to shut down, with the idea being like, just give it a couple weeks and we'll see what happens. Now, in hindsight, we all kind of know how all this played out, but really, when you read it, it said if you aren't doing in-person transactions, you can stay open and operate. Well, that's 100% our business. We don't have people constantly come in and out of the business, and so it was a little bit of a kind of an internal struggle, and you weren't going to make everybody happy regardless of the decisions. This kind of plays into also some of the challenges as a business, right?
Yeah.
But we did ultimately make the decision to stay open. But still, I felt like, man, I'm really concerned for collectibles because 2020, it's the environment is very uncertain. I don't think people are going to be spending their money on collectibles. Well, as we all know, it had kind of the opposite effect. I think a lot of those people that are just sitting at home, they're browsing the internet, getting some stimulus money, and they're flipping. A lot of people, you saw kind of an increase in the people buying and flipping on all these message boards and things like that. So it definitely had the opposite effect on our business, which I'm very thankful for. And of course, the last couple of years, I think we've all seen a bit of a correction, which makes sense. But from what I've seen, I still feel like it's corrected at a very high level, like much higher than pre-2020 levels. Yeah. So for us as a business, it did kind of stagnate a little bit, 2020, 2021, because it really shot up in 2020, I think, for everybody in collectibles. And then so it kind of leveled out. Now we're really starting to see some growth again, which is encouraging. I think it just shows the strength of the hobby and how it's really seems like it's really gaining some more steam again. I think you're probably seeing that too on your side.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for you, it feels like, kind of as you had mentioned, prices kind of soared there in 2020, 2021, and then you saw some correction. But it feels like that there's a lot more participants today in 2025 overall in the hobby than there was even going back to the high points of 2021. I think back to Dallas Card Show, I went in May of 2021, and that was like the first show kind of coming off of the pandemic. And a lot of us content creators went there because we weren't sure if there was going to be a national, still up in the air if there was going to be a 2021 national. And that Dallas show was absolutely slammed. And I was talking, actually, just going back a few weeks, I was talking to Dr. Beckett about that in particular. And he's like, yeah, the show's actually bigger now. It's just they've blown out a wall. There's just more space. So it doesn't necessarily, it might not feel as big because we weren't all, packed in like sardines, but it's actually bigger. There's more participants. Are you guys seeing more transactions in 2025 compared to 2020? I guess, is there more volume? Maybe prices are a little bit lower, but are you seeing increased volume?
Yeah, definitely. So January of this year, we were actually up 26% overall. And last year we listed and sold more items than we've ever sold. So yeah, I mean, the volume's there. Everything is really an upward trajectory. So yeah, I mean, everything seems real healthy. We're doing, as a team, we're doing more shows than we've ever done. We are really seeing a lot of success there and some good crowds. So we're getting more involved there. No, if you go back a few years, we kind of just do the national and really nothing else. And we always will. I mean, the Nationals, that's definitely home for us. I know we all love being there, but we're getting more involved now in other shows than we ever have. And I think that just speaks to, the audience that we're seeing, the growth we're seeing in all those shows around the country. It's really encouraging for sure.
Yeah, I remember I went to Chantilly show and saw you guys had a huge setup in the back, especially with all the different autographs and everything. I don't understand how you guys coordinate all that stuff. It just seems like such a maze back there. I'm like, man, that's incredible.
Yep. It's the team. I mean, I'm kind of a homebody. I don't get out a whole lot, but the team knocks that stuff out of the park for us for sure. I'll usually make it out to national and hopefully one or two more throughout the year. But I'd love to get out to more, but got the little kids here, so.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, I've got 4
home
kids.
As much as possible. Yeah,
totally. And I'm in the same boat. It's just I don't mind getting out, but I'm also just okay being home too. I'm kind of a homebody as well. I totally get it. What excites you kind of about? I guess what excites you about today's hobby? Where you started in 2010 or now in 2025? What excites you about today's hobby? And then, do you have any concerns maybe, out there in today's hobby?
Yeah, I mean, the excitement is just kind of more what we've touched on, just seeing the explosion of excitement really in every category. I feel like you're seeing it in cards, you're seeing it in memorabilia. I just think everywhere you go, it feels like there's excitement and packed shows. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. As far as concerns, it's part of why we do what we do and why I think it's important for collectors is always authenticity. I mean, it feels like really, and just knowing where you're buying from. It feels like every time I'm watching all the YouTube videos and I feel like there are just scams happening and authenticity issues all over the place. So, and I understand it. Like, it's not an exact science. It's a hard part of the hobby that we're all in, even the best authenticators out there make mistakes. But they're on the right side of the track. They're doing their best and they're the best at what they do. So, I think that's something that's always concerned me. There's also been a rise, especially in autograph memorabilia, of some really good forgeries out there, and they're starting to actually forge the holograms also. So, there's some stuff you really got to watch out for. And another reason why it's just so important to, purchase from a reliable source, that if an issue ever comes up, that they're gonna take care of you.
I think about that a lot too on eBay. Love eBay, and I bought a pretty big card off eBay today, but there is a lot of stuff that flows through eBay that is not legitimate over the years, not just now, but I mean this, and it's not anything, it's not on them. It's just, everyone's doing their best, but it's just such a huge platform. Stuff's going to pop up, but fake autograph stuff, as you mentioned, even bad ones, good ones, they do pop up. And one of the reasons why when I'm buying my stuff off Pristine, I just feel confident in what I'm getting. Yeah,
and I will say this, props to eBay. They've made some good steps in the right direction, with their authenticity guarantee and things like that. Those are some big steps. They've definitely heard that feedback. But yeah, I mean, that's something that I believe does differentiate ourselves. Everything that comes through here, we're putting our stamp on, and we're making sure it's authentic, and we're taking care of you if there ever is an issue. It's rare that there would be, for the reasons that I touched on. But we have authenticators here in the office regularly, the top ones that review items and ensure that they're authentic. We work with outside sources. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the GOAT Authentics. They're primary
stuff.
Yeah, and now they're doing Brady also. They've coupled with the Brady experts too. So that's something that we take, no matter who's authenticated it. We take an extra step with those guys and have them get their eyes on it too, just for that additional, especially with those types of names. You want to make sure that you're getting the real deal. And those are ones that there've been a lot of issues. If you follow their feeds, there's been a lot of the issues I'm talking about where it appears everything's legitimate. It's got a signature that looks legitimate. It's got what appears to be an Upper Deck authenticated sticker. Yep. So, an authentic Mitchell & Ness jersey. So, they're getting pretty sophisticated out there with the forgeries, and that's why it's so vital to be getting from the right sources. So one of the reasons why we partnered with them. They do a great job.
And you had mentioned too, I mean, with yourself, with the game used Booker jersey, that's a growing market. People getting more interested in game used and autograph stuff and inscriptions and all that, what makes these things special. And so you're right. I mean, when we're talking about Brady and LeBron and we're talking about Kobe and all these different folks, Jordan, it's critical. It's absolutely critical because none of that stuff comes cheap. Now,
yeah, for sure.
Pristine Auction, I feel like the one thing I was going to ask you is like, Are you looking to take over the auction space? Are you looking to, take over, be number one, in sports memorabilia, cards and all that stuff? But I feel like you guys are different. You kind of have your own lane. When I compare you to other auction houses, what sorts of goals, I guess, or how do you see, long term, how do you see Pristine, going? I know that it's probably year by year, but, can you share any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm a super competitive person, so number one is always something that we'll strive for. But in some ways, I think we've always sort of stuck in our lane, and I think it's a bit of our superpower a little bit that sometimes we're not included in some of those conversations. When they're talking about where the big pieces go and things like that. I'm okay with it. Like I think in some ways, we kind of play as the underdog in that space, and I don't think a lot of people know the kind of volume that we do. But that's what I also like about us and our team is I think we are sort of the everyman's auction, kind of the approachable auction, and that's what I love about it, and that's where I want to stay. I like that much more than being number one in the space. I definitely want to keep that feel for Pristine and be that approachable brand. So yeah, I mean, of course I'm competitive and we want to continue to grow. And it's funny, I often get asked that question, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 3 years or even 1 year? But we're such a fast moving company and we always have been. We're privately owned. So I always say like we do what we want. So
that makes it seems really nimble.
Yeah, exactly. We can move very fast.
Yeah.
We can make decisions very quickly once the team's aligned on it. And I enjoy that. It makes it fun. It makes it a fun place to work where we can innovate and move very quickly. So
perfect. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up. I know that we got the Minute Madness auction out of you. Is there anything else that you can share, or maybe just a tease of anything? And it's okay if the answer is no, but anything that we can expect or anything exciting on the horizon coming up for?
Yeah, I think those are the two real focuses of ours that are new and that are going to be growing quickly is Minute Madness, which isn't even out yet, but it's coming soon. Stay tuned for that. That's going to be a ton of fun. And then the live auctions. We have a lot of fun stuff planned with the live auctions. And so stay tuned for that. A lot of cool stuff coming.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jared, for coming on. Good to hear from, the behind the scenes of an auction house owner. Always good to see you. And we will be back again another time. Thanks for joining.
You got it. Anytime.